Have you ever wondered if God actually hears your prayers? A lot of times God is silent. You're praying. The only thing that you get back is silence from God. And then you cry out, you intensify your prayers, and you ask God, God, can you hear me now? God, can you hear me now? And it's still silent. You ever wonder why God is silent at times? You look into the world and you see what's going on. You're living this Christian life. You're doing the best you can. You're living, trying to obey the commandments. You're living a life that reflects the image of Christ, that you're a child of God. And yet you look into the world and it seems as though the evil are prospering. They're the ones who are getting ahead. It seems as though there's no justice for them. Nothing bad is happening to them. You were taught that you reap what you sow. You're taught that if you do good things will happen to you. You taught all those type of things. And yet you look into the world and you just don't see it. And you go to God in prayer asking for an explanation, and God seems to be silent, or it seems as though God is not doing anything about it. This is the frustration of Habakkuk, a righteous man, a prophet, living in a wicked and evil country, and he's wondering about some things. He has some complaints, some questions about God. Stay tuned. Let's find out the complaints that Habakkuk has with God, and let's see how God responds to Habakkuk. Maybe that can help us with our questions also. Stay tuned. This lesson is going to be fantastic. Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. John W. Wilson III, bringing you the Sunday School lesson for this Sunday, February 25th, 2024. I want to thank all of you for joining me on today. It is appreciated. Before we get started, if this lesson blesses you in any kind of way, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. If you feel that you have a friend or family member that would benefit from this lesson, please share it with that lesson. I'd like to this lesson to reach as many people as possible, and I need your help. The title of this lesson is called Faith in God's Purpose. Faith in God's Purpose. We'll look from the book of Habakkuk, the minor prophet, very small book. We'll go to chapter 2 and we'll look at the first 5 verses 1 through 5. So let's get right into this lesson. Let's talk about what we know about Habakkuk. I mentioned earlier that he's a minor prophet, not in less of importance. What he says is extremely important, but less in content. So whereas Isaiah has a multitude of chapters, Habakkuk has relatively few chapters. And so, in fact, Habakkuk has just 3 chapters. That's all it has. And so it's a minor prophet by content, very, very important. What we know about Habakkuk, his name means to embrace, or one who embraces. That's an affectionate type of term, like a beloved person or somebody like that. So somebody who embraces God or is embraced by God. And it speaks to the commitment that he had with God there. When did he reign? When was his ministry? His ministry was about 609, started around 609. About that time, he ministered in the Southern Kingdom. At the time there, the Northern Kingdom no longer existed. And so, don't know how long his ministry was, and don't know anything more about him, but he played a pivotal role here, as we see in this lesson, in communicating to the people a vision from God, something to keep them hopeful in the times of despair when things became difficult. So another little bit about the background of what's happening here. In 722, the Northern Kingdom was conquered by the Assyrian nation. They were the world power at that time. At 612 BC, the Babylonians have gained strength and gathered. They were becoming the world power. At 612 BC, they conquered the Assyrians, took them down. They were no longer the world power. Babylon was. The only other threat that Babylon had occurred in 605 BC, where under Nebuchadnezzar, he conquered Egyptians, and that took them out the way, and that made it a way for them to become the world power, undisputed world power of this world. A little side note, it was Nebuchadnezzar's father who initially led the army, or was king, and defeated the Assyrians. And then it was Nebuchadnezzar himself, the son, that finished off the Egyptians and brought everything together, and that started his reign as king there. If we go a little farther in our history, we'll see that in 605 BC, 597 BC, and 586 BC, the Babylonians laid siege against the southern kingdom. And then finally in 586 BC, that's when they took down Jerusalem, the Solomon's temple, did all of that, and did a mass deportation from Jerusalem to Babylon. So that's what we have here. So right now the Assyrians gone, the nation, the Babylonian nation, is the rising power, the power of its day. And we'll get into more detail of how bad they are. But in the midst of that, Jehoiakim is the king. Before they are conquered by Babylon, Jehoiakim is the king, and he's a evil king. He's not a good king. Josiah was the king before him. He led 12 years of reform, getting rid of idols, instituting back the commandments of God, instituting worship in the temple, doing a lot of religious reforms. And then it was Jehoiakim right after him, after Josiah had died, reversed all that and brought them back to what they were before, an evil nation, an ungodly nation, full of idolatry, full of violence, full of evil, full of wrongdoing, away from God, apostate from God. So that's the setting. Judah did not learn from their big brother. They are as bad as they were, and God has a message for them, and Habakkuk has some questions to God about this. So let's look at chapter 1, and we'll kind of go through this, and then we'll work our way up to chapter 2, and that gives a little context of what's going on. So in chapter 1, verse 2, Habakkuk has a complaint against God. This is his first complaint. He has 2 complaints. This is his first complaint. Remember, he's a prophet in this time. He's a righteous man. He's a remnant. There are other righteous people, but the majority are evil in his world, in his country. And he looks out into his world, into his country, and he doesn't like what he sees. He sees a lot of, I mentioned before, evil in his nation. And he looks at beyond that. He sees even evil in this world. And so he has some questions about God regarding his particular nation of Judah. He said, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear?" And that cry for help means prayer. And how long means he's done it for a long time, repetitively. So when we come here, Habakkuk has been praying to God over and over again for a considerable amount of time. And the prayers have gone to just regular prayer to now he's crying out. And they have escalated. He says, "Oh Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear?" He needs help. He's a righteous man living in an evil nation. I don't know if you know what that feels like, to be a minority, or to be a remnant, a righteous remnant, living in a fallen world, living in an evil nation. It is a hard road to bear. It is not easy. Everything you stand for, your nation or the world is against. In fact, as a righteous person, you're being persecuted, ridiculed, talked about, and all those type of things and it seems as though the wicked and evil are prospering. So he said he wants help from God. Help me deal with the situation, or help this situation go away. He's saying, how long will this injustice continue? He says, or how long will I cry out to you violence? In fact, people are, it's not just they're doing wrong things, they're putting their hands on one another. Murder, robbery, assaults, brutality of different kinds, all those things are happening on the people under Jehoiakim. It's reckless and abandoned. It's reckless and abandoned. When I read that, it reminded me of what I'm seeing in America today, of all this increased violence and the people that are committing these wrongful acts or these evil acts are going unjust. And when they go unjust, the violence and the wrongdoing just continues to escalate. And that's what's happening here. He says, oh, cry to you violence, and you will not save. So he said, I'm crying for help, I'm crying for violence, and you do nothing. And you don't save. You don't get rid of it. You don't help the righteous. You don't help your people. You don't correct the wrongs in the world. God, it seems as though you're silent. It seems as though you're not doing anything. It seems as though you don't even hear me. He says, why do you make me see iniquity? Why do you make me see the sins and wrongdoings of this world? Why do I have to witness? I know we can relate to that. Why do I have to see the murders or hear the murders on TV and see the crimes committed? Why do I have to hear about all the wrongdoings? Why do I have to do that? Or why do you idly look at wrong? You look at the wrong in this nation, in this world, and you do nothing. It's like you're idle. You're sitting still, not moving the hand. You have the power, you have the wherewithal, but you're doing nothing. He's crying out. He's lamenting to God. He is complaining to God. He loves God, but he's complaining. He's venting. That's what we would say today. He said, destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. I'm living in a crazy, mixed up world where anything goes. Anything goes. And it seems like the evil and the wicked are ruling this world with all their violence and destruction and the strife and the contention that they create. He says, so the law is paralyzed. Those commandments that you want us to do, they're paralyzed. They, in this type of environment that I live in, that we're in today, they're paralyzed. They have no effect. They're numb. They don't do anything. They don't change anybody. They don't create law and order of any kind. And justice never goes forth. I'm living in an unjust society where the wrongs are winning over the right, and the wrongs never get punished. Nothing ever happens. There's no justice. There's no court system. There's no recourse. Lord, look what kind of condition that I'm living in. And so justice goes forth perverted. That means that bribery. It's a kangaroo court. Perverted means that what now is right, what used to be right is now wrong, and what's wrong is now right. The poor are being oppressed. The rich and the wealthy, those who are able to bribe and buy their way things, they're prospering at the expense of the have-nots. So that's his complaint. God, you see all this. Why do you let injustice continue? Lord, you see all this. Why is nothing happening? Lord, you see all this. And the law that you give us, the rule and order, is just paralyzed. That doesn't create anything. And so God answers him in verse 5. And a lot of times we think God is not doing anything, but he really is. He said, look among the nations. Look at the world. And see and wonder and be astounded. It's like looking at our world today. Look at China, look at Russia, you look at the United States, look at the Middle East, look at Israel. You see all the world in political chaos. It's in confusion. People fighting here. This war breaks out. This is happening there. It's just an unrest. It says, and see, wonder, and be astonished. For I'm doing a work in your days. All this stuff that you're seeing going on, I am causing that to happen because I have a plan and I'm making things happen. I'm making things, you may not like it, but I'm making things happen on my own time, in my own way. It says, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if I told you, I'm doing things, making things happen, about to happen. If I told you what I was up to, you would not believe me. You would not believe I would do such a thing. It would confuse you. You would be astonished. Look what he says. Look what he says. For behold, I am rising up the Chaldeans. Chaldeans are the Babylonians. Okay, Babylonians are remember I said the world power of that time. There in the Bible, when you hear the word Babylon, it means fleshly desires. And Babylonians, they have no moral code. Anything goes with them. If you thought the Assyrians were evil, the Babylonians put them to shame. That's how bad they are. It says, for behold, I'm raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, that angry and that attacking nation, who march through the bread of the earth to seize dwellings not of their own. They are conquerors. They go after nation after nation after nation. I'm rising up this nation, this hasty nation, this evil nation. They are dreaded and fierce, so everybody fears them. Okay? Now he's bringing them up there for a reason. He hasn't told Habakkuk yet. But he's bringing the worst of the worst nation possible. God is rising them up. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. They do what they want to do. They have no rule of law. Their horses are swifter than leopards. They have a tremendous army, a tremendous cavalry, more fierce than even wolves. They are fierce animals. Wolves, and during the evening time, they are fierce and fierce because they're hungry. These Babylonians conquer in such a way that they're more fierce and more hungry than a wolf. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. You can see them coming. The cavalry is coming. The cavalry is coming. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They are well organized, a well-tuned machine. It's a great army. They get to where they got to go quickly, take care of business, conquer, then they leave and go on to something else, another nation. They all come from violence. Their faces forward. They gather captives like sand. They just gobbling up people left and right, creating all types of violence. See, what they did, the Babylonians did, they did what the Assyrians did. They conquered people and they took them back to their nation to be assimilated. That's what they did. They didn't leave them back in their own nation so they can pay tributes and all those type of things. They wanted them destroyed. They wanted them assimilated into their culture, language, food. You know Daniel and his three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They wanted to assimilate them. Okay. It says they gather captives like sand, just time after time, just gathering people, just conquering left and right. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. They laugh at every foot. They're not scared of anybody. They got the best army, the best equipment, the best know-how, the best technology. For they pile up earth and take it, and they sweep like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose might is their God. God is telling Habakkuk, I'm raising up this nation to deal with Judah, to punish them for their evil ways. That's what he's telling Habakkuk. Habakkuk asked God, what are you doing? How are you going to correct this? God said, I'm going to bring up the most evil nation I can to punish, not destroy, but to punish my people Israel in Judah for their evil ways, for their idolatry. And here's Habakkuk's second complaint. Verse 12, chapter 1. Are you not everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, you have ordained them as judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for reproof. He understands that they're going to judge them, they're going to correct them, correct Israel for the wrongdoings, but he has one question. You who are the pure of eyes, you who are of pure eyes then to see evil and cannot look at wrong. Why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallow up the more righteous than he? He says, God, your eyes are more pure than mine. You see evil and you cannot look at wrong. Meaning you're compelled to do something when you see something wrong, when you see something evil. Because of your holiness, you must act. He said, if that's true, Lord, and you're pure, and you cannot look at wrong, why do you idly look at the traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? Why are you going to let a more evil nation just take over and destroy or conquer a less evil nation? You would, what Habakkuk is saying, you would think you wouldn't. That's like overkill. That's like doing too much to the lesser. You have a big bully like Babylon attacking and conquering a small nation like Judah. You would think it would be something around the realm of Judah, a nation like Judah size attacking Judah instead of having this world empire attacking them. So he's complaining that, God, how can you do that? How can you let someone who's more evil swallow up someone who is less evil? It says, 14, you make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings them all up. And he's talking about Babylon. You got all these nations that are like fishes of the sea. They're scattered all abroad, so that they have no leader, no leadership, and all that kind of stuff. And then you bring this world power, and he brings all these nations, all these people up with a hook, and he drags them out with their net. He captures and conquers all of them. He's complaining about allowing Babylon to do all of this conquering. Like a fisherman who cast a net and pulled all these nations in. That's how Babylon is conquering the people. He gathers them into his dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Then he sacrifices to his net and make offerings to his dragnet. In other words, these Babylon, they don't even give God any glory. They worship, they don't give any God. But their might is in their pride is in what they conquer and who they defeat and who they can enslave. He says, for by them he lives in luxury and his food is rich. They are becoming rich and living in luxury by destroying other nations, conquering other people. Lord, why are you letting that happen? That just doesn't seem fair. He says, is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? How long are you going to allow Babylon to do this, conquer nation after nation, people after people? How long are you going to let them do it without stopping them? You are a righteous God. You don't like seeing things that are wrong. You're compelled to correct things that are wrong. You're compelled to stop things that are wrong. God, what is happening? It says, then he goes, said what he got to say. He has vented out his second complaint. Look what he says in chapter 2, verse 1. I like this. I will take my stand at my watchpost. He's going to go to a tower, and this is imagery. He's going to sit back and wait for God to do what he's going to do. Be on the lookout when God makes this move. I will take my stand on my watchpost and station myself on the tower. I'm going to be high up so I can see when you get ready to make your moves. When I can see everything that you're about to do. And look out to see what he will say to me. Okay, so he's going to be looking out what God's going to do, but he's going to be waiting for God to respond to his complaint, to his lament. And I will answer concerning my complaint. God, you will speak to me, and I will respond to what you say to me. So he's sitting back waiting for that, waiting for God to make his move, waiting for God to say something so he can respond. So there's a little bit of time while he's waiting. So it's not like God's going to respond immediately. No, he has to wait some time. From the end of chapter 1 to chapter 2, some time has passed by. Okay, so he's been waiting patiently. And look what he said in verse 2. And the Lord answered me after waiting and waiting. The Lord answered me. Write the vision. In other words, write this message from God. A vision is something that predicts what's going to happen in the future. Write this vision, this message from God. Make it plain on tablets. Write in big block letters on these tablets. Don't write it on a leaf or a plant. but write it in stone and write it big enough and plain enough so people can understand it and people can read it. Make it plain on tablets so he may run who reads it. Meaning that if somebody is running, they can still read it at a glance. It's like a herald that used to communicate messages back and forth. And if he's running, he can even run by it and glance at it and see it. Make it that big and make it that plain so no one will have an excuse on what my message is or what my vision is. And then he says, Habakkuk, it's going to take, you're going to have to be patient. For still, the vision awaits its appointed time. This vision may not come to fruition immediately. In fact, it probably not. You're going to have to be patient until judgment comes on the Babylonians. Okay? The Babylonians, remember, finally conquered or completely conquered Judah in 586 BC. In 539 BC, they'll be taken out by the Medes, Persia. Okay? All right? So they're gonna be in that captivity for a while. And they're going to have to be patient. And they're going to have to wait on God. But what God is really saying is that even though it seems like nothing is happening, I am working in the background on your behalf. I'm not asleep. I'm not still. I'm not idle. I'm working things out. And your job is to be patient. It says, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, meaning that it will come quickly, but it will not lie. It'll come at God's appointed time, at the right time, and that vision will be truthful. It will not lie. If it seems slow, if you get tired, wait on it. It will surely come. It will not delay. God said, I promise you, it will happen. And sometimes what we have to do is that when we're praying or we're waiting for God to act or we need God's help, we have to, it may take some time to wait. We may have to wait a long time. Wait a long time for somebody to be saved. Wait a long time to be healed. Wait a long time to get our finances in order. Wait a long time for one of our wayward child to get back on the right track. It may take a while. But what does God say? It may seem slow. Wait on it. It will surely come. It will not delay. In other words, judgment on the Babylonians will be slow. But it will happen for sure. And it will not delay. Okay. All right. Let's look at what else he's saying here. Verse 4. Behold, his soul, talking about the Babylonians. Talking about the Babylonians primarily, talking about anybody else who was puffed up and wicked and arrogant, getting back to the people in his day. Primary audience, he's talking about is Babylon, but he's also talking about anybody else who is like Babylon, who operates in the flesh. Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright with him. Okay? Behold, look at the Babylon, puffed up, not living right. You are living in a wicked world. But what's our job living in this wicked world? He says, but the righteous shall live by his faith. Meaning that we need to continually trust God in no matter what situation we find ourselves in. If we live in a world full of wicked people, we have to live by faith, trusting God no matter what. If we find ourselves in captivity, we have to trust God. If we find ourselves being punished right along with the wicked, we have to trust God. No matter what situation we're in, we must trust God. The righteous, those who are in right standing with God. The righteous, those who live right, shall live by his faith. That means continually trusting God. Continually trusting his promises, even in the darkest days. When Babylon conquers Judah, the righteous and the unrighteous will suffer alike. And what's going to be the difference is the righteous will live by faith, his faith. And that will allow them to endure whatever the dark days may bring. The unrighteous will not make it, but the righteous will. He says, moreover, wine is a traitor. Wine is a synonym, another word for greed or money. Traitor is another word for deceiver. Moreover, wine is a deceiver. Moreover, money is a traitor. Money is a deceiver. That's what Babylon did. They were fleshly. They put their stock and barrel in money and power and all the material things, thinking that that would secure their life and eternity. Moreover, wine is a traitor, an arrogant man who is never at rest, who always wants more and more and more. Greed is a deceiver because it tells you the more you have, the happier you'll be. The more you have, the better you are. The more you have, the more important you'll see. It tells you a whole bunch of lies. And it gets you to the point where you can never, ever have enough. And that was the problem with Babylon. They could never, ever have enough. That's why they kept conquering, getting more and more and more, because that was their God. They felt they could never have enough. They could never rest, because they always had to have more. And those who are righteous realize that it's not money that brings happiness. It's a relationship with God, a trusting relationship with God. He said his greed is as wide as Sheol. Sheol is another word for hell. That means it's an endless pit. It's forever wide. Like death, he never has enough. He never has enough. Sheol can never have enough dead bodies. Rich people, Babylon, those who are proud and arrogant, can never have enough of what this world answers. He gathers for himself all nations and collects as his own all peoples. This is what Babylon is guilty of. This is what will bring about their judgment. Persia will conquer Babylon. In Babylon, our modern day Iraq will cease to exist. What is this lesson telling us today? God, oftentimes, we may not think we're hearing from God, or God may not speak to us like we want to, but God is working on our behalf. If you are a child of God, God is active in your life. You may not see it, but He is. Do you know each and every day that we get out of this world, get out and take a step, God is ordering our steps. He's protecting us from the seen and the unseen. He's protecting us from things out there that we can never imagine. Car accidents, eating the wrong thing, drinking the wrong thing, acts of violence, acts of murder. God is ordering us. He's protecting us. And what He's telling us also is those evil people that we see, seem like they're getting ahead, seem like they're running the world, they will have their day. Evil people, even nations, will have their day. Because God is a righteous God. He cannot look upon evil and do nothing, but He's long-suffering. He has a plan, and when His plan comes into fruition, it will be swiftly, it will act swiftly, it will be complete. But we need to thank God for His patience, because God was patient with us. God could have easily wiped us off the map, but God, in His love for us, was patient with us to allow us to come into a relationship with Him. Don't qualm about His time. God is trying to save. God is saving souls in the midst of this evil world. Those people, they'll get what they'll get what they're supposed to get. But our job is to live in this world, be a light to this world, do not conform to this world, have a renewing of our mind, and live by faith in the darkest of days and in the hardest of times. And we can do that because we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us. No, are we going to be perfect? No. But guess what? God's living inside of us. We pick ourselves back up. He picks us up, and we continue living in faith. Well, I hope something I said to you has been beneficial in some kind of way. I hope we can learn from Habakkuk. What a message that I think we need to hear. I know the people of Judah need to hear when they find themselves in captivity under Babylonian rule. But we need to find out, we live in a mixed up, crazy world too. And the evil nations that live today, they will be judged. The evil people that live today, they will be judged. And as Christians, we got to hold to the faith, and we got to be strong. And we can't think God is not doing anything. God is God himself. He hates evil and sin more than we do. He's holy. He's compelled to do something. But it will be in his own time, at the appointed time. And when it comes, it will come swiftly, and it will be devastating. God bless you. Love you much. We'll talk again next week.